The stranger in the architecture section, Nema Hayes, adjusted her wire-rimmed glasses and carefully shelved another stack of returned books in the history section of Boston Public Library. At 24, she had found her sanctuary among the towering shelves and hushed whispers of one of America's oldest libraries. The November afternoon light filtered through the tall windows, casting golden rectangles across the marble floors. She wore her usual uniform of comfort, a cream-colored cardigan over a simple floral dress, her auburn hair pulled back in a loose bun that never quite stayed in place. Emma had worked here for 3 years since graduating with her literature degree, and she knew every corner, every shelf, every squeaky floorboard by heart. An unusual visitor it was a Tuesday when she first really noticed him. Nathan Pierce had been coming to the library for weeks, always heading straight to the architecture and urban development section. Emma had seen him before, of course. It was hard not to notice someone like him. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark brown hair that looked professionally styled, even when slightly disheveled. He always wore expensive-looking clothes. Button-down shirts with the sleeves rolled up, dark jeans, leather shoes that clicked softly on the marble. But what caught Emma's attention most was the way he studied the books. He didn't just flip through them. He read carefully, taking notes in a leather journal, sometimes spending hours with a single volume. "Excuse me," a warm voice broke through her thoughts. Emma looked up to find him standing at the reference desk, holding 3 heavy books about historical preservation. "I was wondering if you could help me find more information about restoration techniques for 19th century brownstones." Emma felt her cheeks warm. Up close, he was even more striking. His eyes were a deep green, and when he smiled at her, she noticed the small dimple in his left cheek. Yes," she stammered, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "We have an entire section on architectural restoration. Follow me." A connection forms as they walked through the stacks. Emma found her voice. Books were her comfort zone. "Are you working on a restoration project?" she asked quietly. "I am," Nathan replied, his voice warm with enthusiasm. "A row of brownstones in Back Bay. They were built in 1887, and they're in desperate need of careful restoration. I want to preserve their historical integrity while making them functional for modern living." Emma's eyes lit up. "That sounds amazing. Most developers just tear everything down." "Not everything old should be replaced," Nathan said, and something in his tone made Emma glance at him. He was looking at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. "Some things are worth preserving exactly as they are." She showed him to the restoration section, pulling out several books she thought might help. As she handed them to him, their fingers briefly touched, and Emma quickly pulled her hand back. "These should have what you need," she said softly. "The blue one has a whole chapter on brownstone facades. And this one," she pulled out a slim volume. "This one talks about preserving original details while updating infrastructure." Nathan took the books, but his attention seemed more focused on her than the titles. "You really know your stuff. Are you studying architecture?" "No, just literature. But I love learning about the stories behind buildings. Every structure has a history, you know. The people who built it, who lived in it, who loved and fought and dreamed inside those walls." "That's beautiful," Nathan said quietly. "I've never thought about it quite that way." The note over the following weeks. Nathan became a regular fixture at Emma's desk. He would come in 3 or 4 times a week, always with questions about his research. He was always lingering to talk with her about more than just books. They discussed everything from Boston's architectural history to their favorite novels, from the best coffee shops in the city to their childhood dreams. Emma found herself looking forward to his visits with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She would catch herself checking her reflection in the window, making sure her hair looked okay, wondering if her cardigan was too plain. It confused her. Men like Nathan didn't notice women like her, did they? Her coworker, Patricia, an older woman who had worked at the library for 30 years, noticed the change. "That handsome young man certainly spends a lot of time in the architecture section," she remarked one afternoon with a knowing smile. And he always seems to need help from you specifically. He's just doing research, Emma protested weakly. Honey, I've worked here long enough to know the difference between a man researching buildings and a man interested in the librarian. One Thursday evening, as closing time approached, Emma was shelving books in the now empty architecture section. She noticed a small envelope tucked between two books where Nathan had been sitting earlier. Her name was written on it in neat handwriting. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Dear Emma, I've been coming to this library for 2 months now, and I need to be honest with you. I finished my research after the second week. The brownstone project was real, but it's been completed for a month. I keep coming back because I've been trying to find the courage to ask you something. Would you have coffee with me? Not as a researcher and librarian, but as two people who might enjoy getting to know each other better. If yes, I'll be at the corner cafe tomorrow at noon. If no, I'll understand and I'll stop bothering you during your work hours. Either way, thank you for making these past weeks the best part of my days. Nathan. Emma read the note 3 times, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She looked around the empty library at the books that had been her companions and her shelter for so long. A part of her wanted to hide. To pretend she never found the note, to stay in her safe, predictable world. But another part of her, a part that had been slowly awakening over these past weeks, wanted something more? The decision that night? Emma barely slept. She kept reading the note, analyzing every word. He had been coming just to see her. Her, the quiet librarian who had never been noticed by anyone, who had never even been on a real date. What would she wear? What would they talk about? What if she was boring? What if he realized she wasn't worth the effort? But then she remembered how he looked at her when she talked about books. How he listened to her ideas about his restoration project. How he laughed at her nervous jokes. Maybe, just maybe, he saw something in her that she couldn't see in herself. The next morning, Emma stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes. Finally, she chose a soft blue dress that her sister had given her last Christmas. One she had never been brave enough to wear. She left her hair down in loose waves instead of her usual bun. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. At 11, she walked into the corner cafe, her palms sweaty and her heart racing. Nathan was already there, sitting at a small table by the window. When he saw her walk in, his face broke into the most genuine smile she had ever seen. He stood up as she approached. You came, he said, and she could hear the relief and joy in his voice. I almost didn't, Emma admitted honestly. I'm really glad you did. He pulled out her chair. I have to confess something else. Emma's heart sank. Here it comes, she thought. This is where he tells me this was all a mistake. I looked you up online last night, Nathan continued. I wanted to make sure I wasn't making you uncomfortable by pursuing this. And I found your book blog. The one where you review classic literature and write the most insightful analysis I've ever read. Emma felt her cheeks burn. Her blog was her private passion, something she did anonymously. You found that? I stayed up until 3 in the morning reading your posts. Emma, you're brilliant. The way you understand character development, themes, human nature, it's extraordinary. No one had ever called her extraordinary before. As they talked over coffee that turned into lunch, Emma felt something shifting inside her. Nathan told her about his work, about growing up in Boston, about his love for preserving history. But more importantly, he asked her questions. Real questions about her thoughts, her dreams, her opinions, and he listened to her answers like they mattered. Can I see you again? He asked as they walked back toward the library, the autumn leaves crunching under their feet. Emma looked up at him. At this man who had somehow seen past her quiet exterior to something worth knowing? Yes, she said, and smiled. I'd like that very much. She didn't know it then, but that single word would change her entire life. The discovery Emma had been dating Nathan for 3 weeks when she accidentally discovered who he really was. They had fallen into a comfortable pattern of coffee dates, long walks through Boston Common, and evening conversations that stretched past midnight. He always picked her up in a modest Honda sedan, wore casual clothes, and never mentioned anything about wealth or status. It was Patricia who shattered Emma's peaceful bubble one Monday morning. The older woman rushed over to the reference desk, her phone in hand and her eyes wide with excitement. Emma, I was reading the business section this morning and look at this. She thrust her phone toward Emma, showing an article titled, Pierce Development Completes Historic Back Bay Project. Emma's stomach dropped as she saw the photo. There was Nathan standing in front of the restored brownstone she knew so well, identified as Nathan Pierce, CEO of Pierce Development Corporation, one of Boston's largest real estate firms. That's your Nathan, isn't it? Patricia gasped.
Oh.
Emma, do you know who he is? His family owns half of downtown Boston. It's worth millions. Emma felt dizzy. She sat down heavily in her chair, staring at the article. Nathan Pierce, not just a passionate preservationist, but the heir to one of Boston's oldest and wealthiest families. Why hadn't he told her? Confronting the truth that evening, Nathan arrived at her small apartment in Allston to pick her up for dinner, just like he had every Monday for the past 3 weeks. But this time, Emma didn't greet him with her usual shy smile. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Before he could even step inside, Nathan's face fell. He knew immediately what she meant. Can I come in, please? Emma stepped aside, her arms crossed defensively. Her tiny studio apartment, with its second-hand furniture and walls lined with overflowing bookshelves, suddenly felt even smaller and shabbier. I saw the article, she said quietly. Pierce Development Corporation, your family's company. You're not just some restoration enthusiast, are you? Nathan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she had come to recognize as his tell when he was anxious. No, I'm not, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to, Emma. So many times. Why didn't you? Her voice cracked slightly. Were you ashamed? Was this some kind of game to you? Rich guy slumming it with the poor librarian? What? No. Nathan looked genuinely hurt. Emma, please, it's nothing like that. Can we sit down? Reluctantly, Emma perched on the edge of her worn couch. Nathan sat across from her in the mismatched armchair, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I didn't tell you because for the first time in my life, someone was getting to know me. Just me. Not Pierce Development. Not the family money. Not the connections or the status. You looked at me and saw Nathan, the guy who loves old buildings and bad coffee and talking about books until midnight. Do you know how rare that is? Wanted to stay angry, but his words tugged at something inside her. You still should have told me, you're right. I should have. I was planning to, actually, this weekend. I wanted you to meet my family, to see my real life, to understand everything. But I was terrified. Terrified of what? You have everything? Money, success, a future. What could you possibly be afraid of? Nathan looked at her with such intensity that it took her breath away. I was terrified that you would look at me differently, that you would see the money instead of the person. Or worse, that you would think you weren't good enough. Which is absolutely ridiculous because, Emma, you are the most genuine, intelligent, beautiful person I have ever met. A rainy revelation, Emma stood up and walked to her small window, looking out at the Boston streets below. Rain had started to fall, creating patterns on the glass. I don't fit into your world, Nathan. I'm a librarian who lives in a studio apartment and shops at thrift stores. Your family probably expects you to be with someone sophisticated, someone from your social circle. She heard Nathan stand up and move behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not touching her. My family will love you because I love you. Emma spun around, her eyes wide. What? Nathan took her hands gently in his. I love you, Emma. I've loved you since that first day when you showed me the architecture section and talked about buildings having souls. I've loved you through every coffee date, every walk in the park, every time you've blushed when I complimented you.
8.
Money, the business, none of that matters compared to how I feel when I'm with you. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes. Nathan, I don't know if I can do this. Your world is so different from mine. Then let me show you that it doesn't have to be as different as you think. Come with me this Saturday. Let me take you to the newest project, something I haven't shown anyone yet. And if after that you still feel like we're from different worlds, I'll respect your decision. But please, give us a chance. Emma looked into his green eyes and saw nothing but sincerity and hope. Despite her fears, despite her insecurities, she nodded. Okay, Saturday. The historic gem Saturday dawned gray and drizzly, matching Emma's nervous mood. Nathan picked her up in a different car this time, a sleek black SUV that probably cost more than she made in 2 years. She tried not to think about it. They drove to the Beacon Hill neighborhood, through streets lined with historic townhouses and gas lamps. Nathan pulled up in front of a beautiful 4-story brownstone with a red door and flower boxes in the windows. "This is it," he said softly. "The Pierce family's latest preservation project. This one is special." He led her up the steps and unlocked the door. The interior had been restored to its 1880s glory, complete with original woodwork, a grand staircase, and period light fixtures. But it was also clearly livable, with modern amenities cleverly integrated into the historic design. "Nathan, this is stunning," Emma breathed, running her hand along the polished banister. "It was my grandmother's childhood home," Nathan explained as they walked through the rooms. After she passed away last year, it had been sitting empty for decades, falling apart. My father wanted to sell it to a developer who would gut it and turn it into luxury condos. But I convinced him to let me restore it instead. He led her to the 3rd floor, to a room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a small garden. The room was lined with built-in bookshelves, and there was a window seat with cushions perfect for reading. "This was my grandmother's library," Nathan said. "She was a lot like you, actually. Quiet, thoughtful, always had her nose in a book. My grandfather used to say that he fell in love with her because she was the only woman who would rather discuss Hemingway than go to fancy parties." Emma walked around the room, taking in every detail. "It's perfect. I'm turning this building into a community literacy center," Nathan continued. "The first 2 floors will house reading programs for underprivileged kids. The 3rd floor will be a research library. And the 4th floor will be office space for literacy organizations." Emma turned to him in surprise. "Really? But you could sell this for millions?" "Money isn't everything, Emma. My grandmother taught me that. She spent her whole life supporting libraries and literacy programs. This is my way of honoring her memory." He stepped closer. "And maybe, if you're interested, I was hoping you might want to be involved. Help design the programs, choose the books, make this place what it should be. Me. But I'm just a librarian. You're not just anything." Nathan took her hands. "Emma, when are you going to see yourself the way I see you? You're passionate about books and learning. You've helped dozens of people in that library find exactly what they need, not just in books, but in life. You notice things others miss. You care about details. Those aren't small things. They're extraordinary things." The rain outside had intensified, drumming against the windows, creating a cozy cocoon around them in the beautiful library room. Emma felt something shift inside her. Like a door she had kept locked for years was finally opening. "First kiss in the rain, I'm scared," Emma admitted quietly. "I'm scared of not being enough for you, of embarrassing you in front of your family and friends, of not knowing which fork to use at fancy dinners, or what to say to important people." Nathan cupped her face gently in his hands. "Emma Hayes, you could never embarrass me. You are smart, kind, genuine, and more interesting than anyone I've ever met at those fancy dinners. As for my family, my mother is going to adore you because you make me happy. My sister will love you because you're not fake or pretentious. My father will respect you because you're brilliant and passionate about what you do." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know them, and I know you, and I know that we belong together." He leaned his forehead against hers. "Please don't let fear keep us apart. I love you too much to lose you over something as meaningless as money." Emma closed her eyes, feeling his breath on her face, the warmth of his hands, the sincerity in his voice. When she opened them again, she saw only truth in his gaze. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I've loved you since you left that note in the library. I'm just not used to feeling this way. I'm not used to someone seeing me. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you feel seen," Nathan promised. Then he kissed her, soft and sweet at first, then deeper as Emma wrapped her arms around his neck and let herself fall completely into the moment. Outside, the rain poured down, but inside the historic library, surrounded by books and history and possibility, Emma finally understood that love wasn't about being from the same world. It was about creating a new world together. When they finally broke apart, both of them were smiling. Nathan traced her cheek with his thumb. "So, About meeting my family next weekend, Emma laughed, the sound surprising her with its lightness. Okay, I'll meet your family. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens, we'll always be honest with each other. No more secrets about who you are or where you come from. Just truth. I promise, Nathan said solemnly. No more secrets. Just us figuring out this life together. They spent the rest of the afternoon in that library room, talking about dreams and fears and futures. Nathan told her about growing up with privilege, but feeling disconnected from the meaning behind it. Emma shared her own childhood, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, finding solace and escape in library books. Your mother sounds amazing, Nathan said. I'd like to meet her too. She lives in Maine now, working at a small bookstore she always dreamed of owning. She saved for 20 years to buy it. We'll visit her, Nathan said decisively. I want to know everyone who made you who you are. As evening fell and they prepared to leave, Emma took one last look around the library room. Thank you for showing me this place, for trusting me with your grandmother's story. Thank you for giving us a chance, Nathan replied. I know your world feels safer, Emma, but I promise you, taking risks with me will be worth it. Emma squeezed his hand. I'm starting to believe that. Meeting the family the following Saturday, Emma stood in front of her closet in a mild panic. Nathan was picking her up in an hour to take her to his family's estate for lunch. She had tried on every dress she owned at least twice. Nothing felt right. Everything was either too casual or trying too hard. Her phone rang. It was Nathan. Hey, I know you're probably freaking out right now, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Stop overthinking. Wear whatever makes you feel comfortable. My mom is in jeans and my sister will probably show up in yoga pants because she's coming straight from the gym. You're lying to make me feel better, Emma accused. But she was smiling too. I'm absolutely not. We're informal people, Emma. Well, mostly. Dad might wear a polo shirt instead of a t-shirt, but that's as fancy as it gets on weekends. Emma ended up choosing a simple navy dress with a cream-colored cardigan, comfortable flats, and minimal jewelry. When she looked in the mirror, she saw herself, which Nathan had told her was exactly what his family needed to see. The Pierce family estate was in Brookline. Set back from the road behind old trees and stone walls, Emma's stomach churned as they drove up the long driveway to a beautiful colonial-style home that was large but not ostentatious, elegant but welcoming. Remember, Nathan said as he parked, taking her hand? They're just people. Flawed, normal people who eat too much at Thanksgiving and argue about politics and tell embarrassing stories. The money doesn't change that. Carolyn Pierce, Nathan's mother, met them at the door, and Emma was immediately struck by her warmth. Carolyn Pierce was in her late 50s, with silver-streaked brown hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, wearing jeans and a soft sweater. Her smile was genuine and reached her eyes. Emma, I've heard so much about you, Caroline said, pulling Emma into an unexpected hug. Nathan talks about nothing else these days. It's Emma this and Emma that. Very sweet and very unlike my usually reserved son. Mom, Nathan groaned, but he was grinning. Come in, come in. I hope you like roast chicken. I know Nathan said you weren't vegetarian, but I made extra vegetables just in case I misunderstood. The house interior was beautiful, but lived in, with family photos on every surface, books scattered on tables, and a golden retriever named Biscuit, who immediately attached himself to Emma's side. Down, Caroline commanded half-heartedly, but she was smiling. He loves everyone. We got him from a shelter 3 years ago, and he thinks every visitor is his new best friend. I don't mind, Emma said, scratching behind the dog's ears. I love dogs. Then you'll fit right in, came a voice from the doorway. A younger woman who looked remarkably like Nathan bounded in, wearing athletic clothes and a bright smile. I'm Rebecca, the cool sister. You can call me Becca. Fair warning, I'm going to interrogate you about your intentions with my brother. Becca, Nathan warned. I'm kidding. Mostly. Becca grinned at Emma. But seriously, it's great to meet you. Nathan has been insufferable lately, smiling at his phone and being all mysterious. I was starting to think he'd joined a cult. Robert Pierce Lunch was surprisingly casual and filled with laughter. Nathan's father, Robert Pierce, arrived late from a morning golf game. He was tall and distinguished-looking, with gray hair and the same green eyes as his son, but his demeanor was friendly and down-to-earth. "So you're the young woman who got my son to finally use that library card I've been buying him every year," Robert joked as he shook Emma's hand. "Dad gives everyone library cards for Christmas," Nathan explained. "It's his thing." "Libraries are the heart of a community," Robert said seriously, sitting down at the table. "I grew up poor, put myself through college working 3 jobs. The public library was where I studied, where I learned, where I found opportunity. I've never forgotten that." Emma warmed to him immediately. "That's beautiful. Not many people understand how important libraries are." "Oh, you've gotten him started," Becca laughed. "Dad can talk about libraries for hours." Conversation flowed naturally. They talked about books, about Boston's development, about Emma's work at the library. Carolyn shared stories about her own career as a teacher before she retired. Becca talked about her work as a physical therapist. No one treated Emma like an outsider or made her feel inadequate. "Nathan tells us you have a literature blog," Carolyn said as they ate dessert. "A homemade apple pie that was absolutely delicious. I found it online. Emma, your analysis of Jane Austen is brilliant. I've been reading Pride and Prejudice for 30 years, and you pointed out themes I never considered." Emma blushed deeply. "Thank you. It's just a hobby." "It's more than a hobby," Robert interjected. "It's scholarship. Have you ever considered teaching or writing professionally?" "I wouldn't even know where to start," Emma admitted. "Well, if you're interested, I know several people at Boston University's literature department. I sit on their advisory board. I'd be happy to make an introduction." Emma glanced at Nathan, who was smiling encouragingly at her. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Pierce. Call me Robert, please. And it's not kindness, it's recognizing talent when I see it." The garden conversation after lunch, Caroline suggested Emma might enjoy seeing her garden. As they walked through the beautiful late autumn landscape, Caroline spoke quietly. "Kima, I want you to know something. When Nathan called to tell me he was bringing you to meet us, he said something I've never heard him say before. He said, 'Mom, I found her. The one I want to spend my life with.' Now, Nathan has dated before. Perfectly nice women from perfectly good families, but he never talked about any of them like that." Emma's heart raced. "Mrs. Pierce, Caroline, please." She smiled gently. "Emma, I can see why he loves you. You're genuine. You don't want anything from him except his company. Do you know how rare that is for someone in Nathan's position? So many people see the name, the money, the connections. They don't see him. I saw him before I knew any of that," Emma said softly. "That's why you're special." Carolyn took Emma's hand. "But I also need to tell you something. Being part of this family comes with challenges. There will be charity events and business dinners. There will be photographers and social obligations. People will judge you and make assumptions. It's not always easy." Emma's old insecurities crept back. "I don't know if I can handle all that. Can I tell you a secret?" Caroline's eyes twinkled. "I was a public school teacher from Dorchester when I met Robert. His family came from old Boston money. I was terrified at our first social event. I used the wrong fork, didn't know what to say, felt like everyone was staring at me and finding me lacking. What did you do?" "I decided that being myself was better than trying to be someone I wasn't. Some people didn't like me. Some thought Robert should have married someone from his social circle. But Robert loved me, and eventually his love gave me the confidence to be comfortable in my own skin. The right people came to respect me for who I was, not where I came from."
Wow.
Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you for telling me that. Yeah, we're not perfect, Emma. We have family drama and disagreements just like everyone else. But we're good people who care about things that matter. And most importantly, we want Nathan to be happy. You make him happy. That makes you family to us." The proposal 3 months later, on a cold February evening, Nathan asked Emma to meet him at the Boston Public Library after closing. She was confused because the library closed at 8 on weekdays, but he insisted, saying he had arranged something special. When she arrived, Patricia let her in with a mysterious smile. Go to the architecture section, honey. Someone's waiting for you. Emma walked through the empty, quiet library, her footsteps echoing on the marble floors. The architecture section was lit by soft lights, and there was Nathan, standing among the shelves where they had first really talked. But the section looked different. The shelves were decorated with fairy lights, and there were flowers everywhere. White roses and lilies filling the air with sweet fragrance. Nathan, what is all this? Emma breathed. He took her hands, and she noticed he was nervous, his palms slightly sweaty against hers. Emma, this is where everything started for me. Where I first saw you, where I first fell in love with the way you talked about books like they were old friends. Where I found the courage to leave you that note. It's beautiful, she whispered. This library gave me you, Nathan continued, and I want to honor that. Emma Hayes, you have changed my entire life. You've taught me that genuine connection matters more than status. That quiet strength is its own kind of power. That love isn't about impressing someone, but about truly seeing them. He lowered himself to one knee. Pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, Emma gasped, tears already streaming down her face. I don't want to imagine a single day of my life without you in it. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my best friend for the rest of my life? Yes, Emma sobbed, not even looking at the ring. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Nathan stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, a beautiful vintage piece with a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. Elegant and understated, so perfectly her. Then he kissed her, deep and sweet. In the place where their story began, Patricia appeared from behind a shelf, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I'm not crying, it's just dusty in here, she claimed, though she was clearly crying. Congratulations, you two. You were in on this? Emma laughed through her tears. Honey, this boy came to me a month ago asking permission to decorate the library and proposal to you here. Of course I said yes. This is the most romantic thing that's happened in this building in all my years working here. The fundraiser speech 6 months later, Emma stood backstage at a literacy fundraiser organized by the Pierce Family Foundation, her heart pounding. The event had drawn hundreds of people, wealthy donors, celebrities, politicians, all there to support literacy programs across Boston. Nathan had asked her to speak about why libraries and literacy mattered. She had said no at least 10 times, terrified of public speaking, especially in front of such an important audience. But Nathan and Caroline had both encouraged her. Insisting her perspective was exactly what people needed to hear. You've got this, Nathan whispered. Squeezing her hand as the MC announced her name, Emma walked onto the stage, the lights blinding, her hands shaking slightly. She looked out at the sea of faces and felt panic rising. Then she saw Nathan in the front row, smiling at her with absolute confidence. Next to him were Caroline, Robert, and Becca, all beaming with pride. And in the second row, she spotted Patricia, who had taken the evening off from the library to be there. Emma took a deep breath and began. 6 months ago, I was invisible, she said simply. The room fell silent. I was a librarian who thought that being quiet meant being insignificant. I shelved books and helped patrons and went home to my small apartment, never imagining that my life could be anything more than that. She paused, finding her confidence. But then someone saw me. Not just looked at me, but really saw me. He saw that I was passionate about books, that I cared about stories, that I believed libraries were more than buildings full of books. They were places where lives could change. Every single day, people walk into libraries seeking something. Sometimes it's information for a school project. Sometimes it's an escape from a difficult home life. Sometimes it's just a quiet place to exist without judgment. Libraries saved my life when I was a lonely kid who didn't fit in anywhere. They gave me worlds to explore and taught me that being different wasn't wrong. It was beautiful. The audience was completely attentive now. Emma felt her nervousness fade as passion took over. The money raised tonight will fund literacy programs, create library collections, and create safe spaces for learning across our city. But more than that, it will tell countless people what someone once told me. You matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And you deserve access to knowledge and dreams and possibility. She looked at Nathan, her eyes shining. Love taught me that I was worth being seen, but literacy taught me how to see myself. Both are precious gifts that every person deserves. Thank you for being here tonight, for caring about this cause, for believing that every person has the right to discover their own story. The applause was thunderous. People stood, and Emma saw tears in many eyes, including Caroline's. As she walked off stage, Nathan met her with a fierce hug. "I am so proud of you," he whispered. "That was perfect." Later, as they danced at the fundraiser's after-party, Emma felt like she was living in a dream. The woman who had once thought herself too shy, too plain, too invisible to matter, was now engaged to a wonderful man. Surrounded by people who respected her voice and making a real difference in her community. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked as they swayed to the music. "I'm thinking about how grateful I am," Emma said, resting her head on his shoulder. "For that Tuesday afternoon, when you asked me about brownstone restoration, for the courage to show up at the coffee shop, for all of it." "I'm the grateful one," Nathan replied. "You gave me something I didn't even know I was missing. A real connection. A genuine love. A partner who sees me, not my bank account." "So what now?" Emma asked. "We get married, we open that literacy center, and we live happily ever after?" Nathan pulled back to look at her, his green eyes full of love. "We get married, we open the center, and we build a life full of books and love and making a difference. Happily ever after isn't a destination, Emma. It's what we create together every single day." It's a wedding 3 months later. They were married in the restored brownstone that had become the Caroline Pierce Literacy Center, named in honor of Nathan's mother. The third-floor library where Nathan had first told Emma he loved her served as their ceremony space. Emma wore a simple ivory dress with lace sleeves, her auburn hair in loose curls, holding a bouquet of white roses. She walked down the aisle between the bookshelves, past friends and family, toward Nathan, who looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Patricia was there, crying openly. Carolyn and Robert sat in the front row, holding hands. Becca was the maid of honor, grinning widely, and Emma's mother, flown in from Maine, sat beside them. So proud of her daughter as Emma and Nathan exchanged vows, surrounded by books and history and possibility. Emma realized that her story had never been about being invisible. It had been about waiting for the right person to show her how to be seen. "I love you," Nathan whispered, as they were pronounced husband and wife. "I love you too," Emma whispered back. "Thank you for waiting for me. Always," he promised. "I'd wait a lifetime if it meant finding you at the end." They kissed, and the room erupted in applause. And somewhere in the shelves, in the quiet space between books and dreams, their story continued, just beginning, ready to be written one beautiful page at a time. Epilogue. 1 year later, the Caroline Pierce Literacy Center opened, its doors on a bright September morning. Emma served as program director, designing reading programs, selecting books, and personally welcoming every child who walked through the doors the first floor housed. After-school programs where kids could get homework help and discover the joy of reading. The second floor held adult literacy classes and ESL programs. The third floor's library had become Emma's domain, a beautiful space where people could lose themselves in books. Just like she once had, Nathan still worked for Pierce Development, but now he focused exclusively on preservation projects, making sure Boston's history was protected for future generations. He and Emma had bought a modest townhouse in Jamaica Plain, filling it with books and laughter and dreams. On the center's opening day, as Emma watched children pour through the doors with wonder in their eyes, Nathan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "You did this," he said softly. "You made this happen." "We did this," Emma corrected, leaning back against him. "Together." In the corner, she noticed a quiet girl, maybe 10 years old, with glasses and braided hair, standing nervously by the shelves. Emma recognized something in her, that feeling of being invisible, of not quite fitting in. Emma walked over with a warm smile. "Hi there. I'm Emma. Is this your first time visiting our library?" The girl nodded shyly. "What kind of books do you like?" "I like stories about magic," the girl whispered, "and girls who go on adventures." Emma's heart swelled. She took the girl's hand gently. Then you're in exactly the right place. Let me show you some of my favorites.